All right. So we just did a handful of questions about you wondering my thoughts on veganism. And now, so I want to try to break down which elements you care about. I don't have any interest. Well, I do have interest in getting people to go vegan if they happen to be convinced by my ideas, but I don't have any need to make people necessarily go fully vegan. Every little bit matters to me. So let's start with something that I think is very simple, and that's fur. We have used fur for all of human history, but I think we're at a point where whether it's fur for like using as like a rug or a blanket, or more often for clothes, or something that like lines a purse or something, I think we have enough different products to keep us warm and clothed that we don't need to be killing, at very least needlessly, for just fur alone. Minks and a few others, they are killed only for their fur, and they are farmed for their fur, where something like a rabbit, if you justified the idea of killing a rabbit to eat it, might as well use its fur. But where do you stand on the fur that is only used for fur?
Yeah, I'm definitely against it. And to my knowledge, I don't own anything like that. But I guess my sentiment is very strongly with what you mentioned earlier, where if we're going to be killing it for its meat, we I think that we're kind of obligated to use everything that that animal gives us.
Mm.
And so I see no problem with using the fur. I think we should be using the fur, and we shouldn't be letting anything go to waste, because that would be killing it needlessly, right? So if,
Mm.
if we're killing cows for beef, we should also be using all their fur at the very least.
Mm.
And so yeah, I definitely agree. I agree with your general sentiment. There's something there that I wanted. Oh, yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up is like with that would be like sheep, where we're not necessarily killing them. And I think that it's totally fine, as long as the sheep are healthy and
Mm.
healthy and happy, and doing what they would otherwise be doing without us. So, giving us a sufficiently big field, and we give lots of food and stuff. I don't have a problem with that.
Mm.
And I definitely do have quite a bit of stuff that is wool.
Mm.
And I definitely like it. I think it's, I spend a decent amount of time out, doing outdoors activities, and wool just has a lot of natural physical benefits over cotton. There's some synthetic materials that are getting pretty good, but still in general, yeah, wool is something that I definitely value quite a bit. And
Gotcha.
yeah, so
So I would say as long as regulations are making it to where they're not being harmed too much with the taking off of their wool, then it's far down on my list. But as a kid, I actually grew up in an area where there was a sheep farm, and me and my sister went there all the time. And so they do roam on pretty big fields, but then they also have a factory element. And the one of the most disturbing things to see as kids was when they would castrate the male sheep. They don't give them anything to not feel the pain. They just pick them up, turn them upside down, and use their teeth and pull out the testicles and then spit them into a bucket, and then the sheep runs off. Now that seems horrible to us because we're humans, so we imagine that happening to us, and that sounds horrible. And I don't want to what's the word, anthropomorphize them. I think that's what it means when you that's the word for putting our ideas on them. But I will say that I would like to know what level of suffering that brings, how much pain they're in, how, if they heal up right away, or what level there is for that. So that's an element I don't like about sheep. Um, there is another element where I don't like that when we domesticate things, we breed them to do certain things. Like any sheep in the wild before there ever was humans involved with them never would have had their wool grow to a level where it would kill them if we didn't cut it. And so I don't like the idea of breeding them to make them grow more. So, but that's not a huge element for me. Um, but in general, I don't think we should be making them suffer. So the factory farm element of it, if there's a lot of sheep and they're being like prodded with like an electric stick to make them go through a certain area for us to kill them to use the mutton and the lamb. There's so many complicated elements to it, but I care so much more about the suffering than I do about the life itself. So if they suffer more from the shearing, I guess that would be my concern. And I don't know enough about it. So I would say if there's not much suffering there, then stealing their wool seems like such a low bar thing for any of the animal movement to care too much about.
Yeah, and from what I understand, like if the wool isn't sheared off of them, then it's actually like unhealthy from them for them. So
That's only for the ones
because
we
it,
bred that way, though.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And I guess yeah, so like for the ones we breed, we definitely have that obligation, I think, to do it.
Mhm.
In terms of the castrating though, I guess I don't have a huge problem with it because I look at it like if you look at it in terms of like their entire life,
Mhm.
like it's even if it's like a couple days or a week of pain for them, it's really not to me that big of a deal. Like it's still such a short amount of time.
Mhm. Well,
In
let me
relation.
turn that around on you. In our last talk, we talked about aliens coming down, offering us 50 years of great life compared to as if we were living bad human lives, and then they nicely execute us. What if we add in one stipulation where right now they remove your testicles, but everything else is great. They give you video games, TV, you just have the nicest life, but you don't have your testicles, and therefore you have no, like, you lose the majority of your sex drive, and so it just, that element of your life is not the natural human way that you were designed to be. Assuming you're not asexual, I don't know your sex life, but anyways, I am curious. Not that we should compare ourselves to sheep. I think aliens should recognize our sentient level makes our testicles matter more than sheep testicles. But I am curious, would you still accept that 50-year life?
Uh, Personally, I think I would. I like, but again, that's entirely subjective. Like in terms of like looking at my life and looking at the things that give me fulfillment. Um, for me personally, sex isn't super high up on that list, and so
Mhm.
that's something I'd be willing to sacrifice for greater freedom and greater stability.
Okay.
But
I'm I
I can
mostly
totally understand people disagreeing with that.
Yeah, I
So
mostly thought of it because I think it's important for like cats and dogs to be spayed and neutered just so we don't have too many strays running about. But I do feel bad that like part of mammal nature is reproducing. It's just such a huge element of our instincts. And so I feel bad that we're taking this thing that we want it to be our pet, and we're just like not having it have any other friend, like for anybody that owns just one dog, not having it have any other of its own species around, and not having that life of going through the instincts to want to breed. And so anyways, I just thought, I think that's a huge part of human life. I think it's a huge part of each of the animals, and so that's what made me think of that. But my next question for you, this isn't really a moral question, but it's more of a just is this weird or not? But we were talking about hunting. You're in favor of hunting. I'm not as against it as most things. But the idea of people cutting the heads off and taxidermy to keep it so they can have it on their wall, do you find that as strange as I do?
um I yes and no. I understand where you're coming from, and I I think a big part for me is I don't really find it visually um like that appealing. And but so I don't know, I guess I have a story for you. I actually came across a dead elk um when I was hunting, and so I went and I got a um because apparently you can do this, and I didn't know until I did. But yeah, we called a game warden, and you can get a tag just to take their head, and I did. And so,
Mhm.
but I prefer the European mounts, which are just the skull. But yeah, and I guess for me, like, um, it's I guess similar to like the fur and stuff, where I think like if you can, like practically do it, you should. Um, and I guess this is just kind of a piece of art, right? Like, and it is almost, it is like the way that you look at it, like people mount it on their wall as they would a painting. And if you're going to be killing, the animal for their meat, you might as well also take that. So I guess that's my look. Um, I, 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 I guess I'm more utilitarian, in terms of like the hunting that I do, where if you give me an opportunity, I'm like, I don't think I've ever not shot at something because it's too small. Where, I care a lot more about the meat than the trophy aspect.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where, yeah, I found the elk, and it is already rotting away, and had been dead. And so, and yeah, and I would argue that it's almost, a bit of a waste to not, take it, and that, I guess now it's a way that that animal can, be remembered. And
Mhm.
which I think there's a certain beauty in it. Although I gotta say, like, in my home personally, I don't think I will ever, because they're just, and I have no desire to, take like aesthetically, I'm just like, even the European mounts I think are better, but I still don't like them enough to, and I just see it as kind of tacky
Mhm.
personally. But
Yeah.
I have family members who do like that stuff. And I guess the other thing is, like, my great grandfather shot like a record deer. And so, like, it's, like, also like looking at it as like a family heirloom, and where it
Mm.
gets passed down. I think that's cool. And again, like that's a way to remember and honor the animal, in a way that it wouldn't have been before. So, yeah, I
Okay. I get that. Yeah.
kind of a mixed bag for me, with
Yeah.
that
What?
topic specifically.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the roadkill thing you're talking about, where like once the element that matters is done, does the rest really matter? And so if something died naturally, you can eat it. If a skull is there, the thing's already dead, so who cares? So it mostly, it was just like maybe the mindset of wanting it, the trophy hunting versus the hunting for healthy eating or whatever. Just is strange to me. Okay, next question. I got two for you. Um, so similar to the fur thing, there's a lot of things that are tested on animals. And this is a kind of a topic that might be a good reversal for you to test my limits. Because, like, would I accept the testing of animals to cure cancer and stuff like that? And short answer is I probably would. But I think it's complicated. But anyways, testing on things that I think we can say don't matter, like makeup. There are many types of makeup that are cruelty free. They got a little picture of a bunny on the back, a little icon. And but the majority, like Maybelline and all these other ones, they basically, when they make the product, they put the product on the skin, or actually I think they might drip it into the eyes. But anyways, they put it on bunnies, and they see how their skin reacts to it, because bunnies happen to have like similar reactions to us. So they'll tweak their ingredient to whatever route is best for them for getting the right makeup. And as soon as they get it to the level where it doesn't hurt the bunny and it was tested on the bunny, then they sell it to the public. I would say that, considering our abilities to make makeup that isn't tested on animals, I think it'd be reasonable to make a law that you can't test on animals for something like aesthetics. Now, I mean, you don't wear makeup. I don't think you wear makeup. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I don't know. In my mind, even if people loved makeup and they specifically wanted makeup that was tested on bunnies, I think it's reasonable, in the same sense that I think fur for fur's sake should be outlawed, like minks. I think that testing on animals for makeup, and I can't think of another product off the top of my head, but something that isn't health related, that it's just a something somebody likes the look of. I think it'd be safe to say that places shouldn't be able to test on animals. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I strongly agree. That's definitely something that I vote for if we could legislate that. And yeah, makeup is something, as you predicted, is something I don't care for.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that's absolutely horrible. I could see it if it was using like animal tissue from something that was dead, but yeah, to test it on a live animal, especially for something as vain as that, does not seem justified to me at all. And yeah, I definitely disagree with that. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and I like talking about these kind of topics because I think people view things as you're either vegan or you're not vegan, when really it's kind of a spectrum of different levels of how you view if something should suffer or not for different reasons. And like, so like I would put you on a scale, on a vegan scale, around a 40 or a 50 if we're doing out of 100, where a lot of people are down towards like 10, and some people are, I'd consider myself towards like a 80 or 90. I'm not at the area of I would let myself die versus killing a cow to survive, which I talked to a guy yesterday that said him and his family would just die with the cow and they wouldn't eat the cow. Um, but but I think that's why it's good to talk about these kind of things, because I think most vegans will say, oh, if you like hunting, then and you won't stop, then there's nothing to talk about. But I think there are important things to talk about, because there are probably people out there that buy makeup and they don't know what goes into the testing, where if just a conversation like this could at least lead to bunnies not suffering from needless testing. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I hope to have a lot more like it. Another one, I'm curious, I don't know how Wyoming is with rodeos, but I know a lot of people that are into hunting are probably into rodeos, and I get it. I love Yellowstone. It's fun to watch cowboy type stuff. Yellowstone the show, not the place. I do want to go to the place. Montana, right? So rodeos, do you think for our entertainment to watch this situation happen, we should be able to tighten the belt on bulls in a way that makes them feel so much pain that they try to buck people off?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of rodeos. That is definitely pretty big here in Wyoming. Um, and I've only been to a couple of them, but yeah, it definitely is just and I I can somewhat sympathize where rodeos came from, of like the like because it was originally, like those skills were needed to like practically maneuver livestock around, right? And
Mhm.
so I can understand like why it's a thing and why it started, but now that we have ATVs and we don't need to ride around on horses, and we have other ways to move livestock, I think that there's no reason to still practice those skills. And but I mean, at the same time, I do to some degree understand the like sporting aspect of it. But yeah, overall, but there's other sports. Like I think if you want to do something horse related, go play polo, or do some
Mm.
sort of like horse racing, where you don't have to, directly cause pain. And to me, it's like I I see it as like you're humiliating the animal as well, which I know the animal doesn't care about, but I still think that we should try not to do that, and that the way that we look at the animals matter. And so,
Mhm.
and I guess that like the counter on the other side would be it's less about humiliating the animal and more about like demonstrating these like feats of athleticism, and like I guess like
Mm.
lifting up ourselves. But yeah, and once again, I think if you want to do that, just go choose another sport that involves a horse.
Mhm.
So
Or
yeah,
the electric bulls that are at bars and stuff like that.
go do that. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of rodeos in general. But yeah, like I don't know if I'd like go and You know, like I'm not gonna like go to a rodeo and protest it or anything. Like I'm not like that against it, but
Mhm.
it's definitely something that I'm personally not super comfortable with, and I do not think it's justified. So
Gotcha. All right. So my last kind of question, which could be a big one, it's not really a question, but so I am wondering what your level of thought is on eating animals. So you're talking about hunting, which you like the idea of hunting, and you mentioned that you don't like the idea of factory farming, but do you personally at this time eat a variety of things that are factory farmed? Like, do you eat like fast food?
yeah, I do, but I would like not to.
Mm,
And you know, so I'm an RA, which means I get paid in cafeteria food, and so
mm,
it's really like situationally. It's one of those things where if I could, if I was in a different, and as soon as I am in a different position in my life where I can, you know, switch to you know, only eating you know, like 100% grass fed or only eating things that were hunted, I absolutely would. But right now, that's just like so kind of practically out of the picture for me. And the other thing that makes it hard is I have like a fast metabolism. So
mm.
give me like 5, 10 years and my metabolism slows down because like I'm at the point where like I've gone without eating meat and like I just feel so hungry. And I
Oh,
don't know
okay.
if that's just like the um just like you mentioned how there's like side effects when you're like leaving me. I don't know if it's that for me, but like I just have a really like I just feel like I can't feel full and I can't feel energized unless I have you know at least some sort of meat.
Mm,
And it doesn't have to be every meal, but like I'd say at least bare minimum once every other day. So yeah, to me it's just like kind of a mixture of and of like just practically and I guess where I am like economically in life and just kind of how I physically operate where
mhm.
if I could feel you know as full and just like where I just like an hour later don't feel like I'm just starving from
Mm,
eating plants and maybe and I admit that could totally be possible and I just don't know the right plants to eat
yeah.
I'd do that but yeah so I'd like to think I'm you know somewhat justified and I'm at least it's something that I'm aware of and I make a conscious effort to not do any more than I need to
Mhm.
but yeah I'm definitely far from perfect and pretty far from vegan so yeah
Yeah, no, and I think cost is a big element of it. Like really if you can't afford to eat grass fed, then you can't, you know. One thing that might be interesting is if you went hunting, got a deer, made jerky out of the deer. I don't know, a deer seems pretty large. I don't know if that'll last you for like a half a year just eating jerky throughout the days and then also eating plant-based stuff.
yeah and I haven't hunted as much recently uh for some other reasons but I do have family that hunts and I completely agree I love jerky I love jerky made from deer and elk and if and when I shoot an animal that is basically my plan is just to make it completely into jerky and that's mostly just practically speaking I just love how you can you know take jerky anywhere and
Mhm.
so yeah
Have you
that
ever
is what I would do.
have you ever seen the survival show called Alone?
I haven't, but I know. Oh yeah, sorry, Alone I have seen. Yeah,
Okay, did you
and
see the most recent season on Netflix where there's the bigger guy with the beard that's in a metal band and
I haven't
then
seen the most recent one. No.
okay, it's good. Well, anyways, it's the only time I've seen somebody actually get a deer and he had to carry it like 2 miles, so he carried it in two parts and then he built a thing to make jerky out of it. And anyways, I I'm not into hunting or any of that stuff, but if I was in an area like that and had to survive, it was just such a fascinating way to make something to preserve something. And
Yeah,
So as sad as it is to me, I can also recognize the practical elements of it. But yeah, I guess like what I would hope to convince people of, and what I would want to do myself if I was a meat eater, would be to figure out the best way to cut back on the unhealthy stuff, especially I mean, there's a mixture of the cutting back on animal products, but also just cutting back on unhealthy stuff. You could have a vegan cake that that's so unhealthy for you. It's sugar and all the garbage in it. But at the same time, non-vegan cake, sugar and all the garbage, but also this unneeded dairy that, is just taking from a cow. And so I think one movement that I think would be good is to try to get people to stop eating fast food. Now it's really hard to do because everybody's on the go. Fast food happens to be the cheapest because all the subsidies. I would love to pick a fast food joint and just try to convince the whole world to boycott that one till it doesn't exist anymore. Just because I want the world to be healthier. I want the world to be vegan, but even if they weren't vegan, I want everybody to start eating like more fruits and vegetables and various different things, and like just cutting out all the garbage. And so it's two separate topics, but I know it's tough depending on how much money somebody has. You said you're an RA. Is that like nurse related? What's RA?
It's a resident assistant. So yeah, so I
Okay.
work for university, and
Hmm.
like the halls, and so I work there with residents and community events and stuff. So yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm mostly paid in room and board. So
Okay. And so,
yeah.
yeah. And so you get this free food there. So that makes sense. I couldn't even try to talk you out of that. But when you're not there, do you feel like the reason you might eat fast food like McDonald's or something is because the convenience of it or the cost of it? Or do you have time that if you were to get things that were inexpensive in bulk, like me, I eat a lot of brown rice and like beans. I actually cook my beans from dry and I use like a pressure cooker, and I just eat like wild amounts because those two things are pretty filling. Do you find that you're just so busy with work and school and whatnot that you just don't have time to prepare your own meals?
I also don't have the because I love to cook, but I for the most part don't have the resources. Like I don't have a kitchen in my room, and I'm not allowed to
Mm.
have a lot of kitchen appliances, and so that's a pretty big part of it. But yeah, I hate fast food as well. Because I get that it's cheap, but it's still not as cheap as going and buying stuff, from the grocery store and doing it yourself.
Definitely, yeah.
And I it doesn't take very much effort to get food that tastes way better at home. Um,
Hmm.
that's store bought and stuff than any fast food place. Like for instance, like if we're talking burgers, like just grilling your buns and stuff. Like a lot of places don't do that, or if they do that, they don't do it very well. And so it's like, yeah, I definitely prefer, and I'm just not a huge fan of fast food. Sit down restaurants are a different topic. I do like a good sit down place, but yeah, it's unhealthy, and it's pretty it's pretty appalling how much money people my age spend on fast food.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
especially with like Uber Eats and all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
just spending so much money. I wish I didn't even have to think about it. I wish I could just press a button, all the nutrients went in me, and I didn't have to eat. But yeah.
I love eating. Like I love I love food, like in terms of like the sensory experience of it. And so I definitely disagree with that.
Yeah.
Um, but I can understand like looking at it like practically speaking. That would be nice.
Mhm. Well,
Um,
I think the problem is, and I don't know if it's necessarily a problem, but so all animals in the wild, they have their thing they're supposed to eat. Like, so I have some rescue guinea pigs right now, and we feed them parsley, cilantro, and a few different things they eat. But you can look it up, and something will say, "Oh, this isn't good for them," or it is. Lions need to eat just meat. So everything has its thing that nature, like that is the natural thing that is for it. And so I feel like humans are probably the same way. There's probably something natural for us, which obviously doesn't include meat because we have to cook it. But then in that case, it probably doesn't include like beans or something because we have to cook it. Um, so I'm not saying we shouldn't add things like that. But I guess what I'm saying is if we want to survive and thrive and be the strongest, healthiest we can be, then I think the majority of what we want to consume would be what does that. And so even though there are things that taste good, like alcohol and various different things that we can create, cakes and these things, the fact that we are intelligent enough to have figured out how to put our favorite flavors and tastes, like all the salts and the fats and the sweets together, extract sugar from a plant and make cake. um I get why, similar to what you said, you love the taste of food. Like we might go, okay, let's just eat in moderation. I see the issue that we ever invented these things that make us go, oh, this is so good, I want this. Whether it's on only on birthdays or if it's one dessert a night or whatever. So just for me personally, my personal way I like to view life, I want to get to the point where I never eat like for pleasure in that sense. I do get pleasure from eating, like I love mangoes. Mangoes are great. We're probably
One
designed
of
to
my
eat
favorite
mangoes.
foods.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. And I love berries and various things. But trying to figure out the difference between what I love the taste of because it's man created for companies to make money off of it versus what I love because it's naturally what my body craves. And just the idea of consuming something, we wouldn't want to just put like dirt in our mouths. So just because it tastes good, I think we should work towards not consuming the things that make it like I want to have grandkids someday that I could run around and play with when I'm like 80. I want to be able to do like backflips and not just be falling apart because we all eat unhealthfully. And so figuring out ways to eat healthy is a big part of it for me.
Yeah, and I think that for me, when I talk about enjoyment for food, um, a huge factor for me is how I feel like an hour afterwards. Like
Mm-hmm.
whereas that's one of the issues with fast food is like, yes, it tastes good going down, and like maybe like for the first 5 to 10 minutes after that. But then 1 to 2 hours afterwards, I personally just feel like crap.
Yeah.
And so whereas like when I eat, a venison burger, right, that is like an hour later, I feel great. Like I
Mm-hmm.
feel just energized and so like to me, like that is almost as important as like the actual like flavor in the mouth. And so yeah, and I guess like for me personally, like most of the foods that I really, really like, like I said, mangoes, like and I mangoes I'd say are the same way where like, after eating a bunch of mangoes, I feel pretty good for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so I think that like a there's a clear distinction and like we can have food that is both like it tastes really good, but it also um is very fulfilling nutritionally and just like energy wise afterwards. And so and yeah, and I think that can both be from vegan food and from non-vegan food.
Mhm.
So
So would you
but
say like maybe an ideal for your future when you're not living in the dorms or wherever you're at, if
yeah.
you buy your own house, you're doing all right with your income, like maybe your ideal would be to go out, personally hunt. The only meat you eat is the deer you kill. Maybe I don't know if you go boar hunting, the boar you kill. And then also you have mangoes, you fry up some broccoli, season it how you like it, and you have some brown rice there, and you have all these healthy things. And then but you also just have meat that you get yourself, but your goal would be to stay away from all the factory farm processed garbage.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for me, that's even like if ethics and morals had nothing to do with it, that would still be the idea, the
Mhm.
ideal, just purely because it's so much healthier, and to me, it tastes better as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I Absolutely.
Gotcha.
But before veganism was ever on my radar, that was still the ideal for me. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a thousand times better than what most people do. And also not just better, maybe it is the best. Maybe I'm unaware of it. I don't know if you're familiar with all the drama going on in the vegan world about this guy named Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic.
That's how I found your channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he's eating a little fish right now, but he brought this idea forward, a hypothetical, which I love hypotheticals, to Ed Winters, where he said, if somebody wasn't vegan and then they went vegan and shrunk 3 feet shorter, would that be enough reason for them to go back to not being vegan if they were going to gain that height back? And it's kind of a strange hypothetical. It's obviously not an accurate hypothetical, but it makes us challenge how much we care about the ethical side of it. And I feel like I would probably eat whatever amount of meat I needed to eat to not be 3 feet tall and go back to being 5'10" that I am right now. And so similar, if eating if eating deer, like on like, especially without hormones in it, like all the hormone garbage in beef that has made all of the kids start going through puberty at like 10, if all that's gone, and eating something like going hunting and getting a deer that's just living its life, and one deer lasts you like a month or whatever, and not that any of those details matter, but if it turns out that you would live to be 100 instead of 80, if you would be more energetic and have a great life, I think it matters so much that we focus on ourselves, that if that were the case, I might even say that what you're wanting to do isn't just better than the factory farming. Maybe it's better than what I'm doing and being vegan. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I like to be open-minded and realize we don't have all the answers. I think there are enough studies to show that you can be happy and healthy and live great lives on just a full plant-based diet, but it's maybe not for everyone. And maybe anyways, I guess what I want to say is it's not even just a step in the right direction. I don't want to state that you're even likely wrong with that. I like the idea. I'm picturing you in your own house on a porch swing, eating some of your self-made deer jerky and taking down some mango. And that's a good way to be. I think you have, I like you.
And yeah. But I still, morally, like I'm not even fully convinced that that hunting is completely okay. It's just, certainly compared to factory farming, it's just so much better for me. And I think even compared to non-factory farming, where it's like, like open range and stuff, I still think it's a lot better. And I guess like it's a bit closer for that one, but and I guess one of the reasons I say that is because like in Wyoming there's a lot of spots where ranchers will like lease public land for running cattle, and so the cattle like tear up the forests and stuff here quite a bit. So and so I guess that's like why I prefer where I guess it's less about like the animals' well-being and more about the environment as a whole. And so, but yeah, I really don't know. And I honestly, I could totally see myself in a couple of years being vegan. I could totally see myself not. It's just I'm kind of on the line, and
it's a journey, and you gotta figure it out. So yeah.
Well, and that's like, that's why I appreciate kind of your takes with like militant vegans and stuff, is because I guess like kind of what I was thinking about is like I'd be willing to bet that very, very, very few vegans became vegan instantly, where I bet it was a process where you it was a struggle, and you probably over the course of a week or a year or whatever. And so I think like for a vegan to just go so hard on someone because they ate a burger is just a bit insane, and it's just like kind of a double standard there.
Yeah,
So
well, I think part of it is their passion. Part of it is because online, like any vegan that you'll see being an asshole online, if they were in my place right now talking to you where they can see your face and you're talking back and forth, they would be way less of an asshole. When you get on behind a computer or a phone and you can type stuff, people, and it's no fault of their own, humans, I just don't think are designed to do that. We need to see a reaction. We need to know that we're held accountable for not being assholes. And in person, you wouldn't be an asshole because you get punched in the face. So that's one element. Another element is, I think, even though you're right, I think it took most vegans, a lot of time to get to being vegan. Once they're there, they feel so passionate that they might say things that aren't the best to say. But yeah, one embarrassing story about myself. So I just thought of the ethics on my own around the time I turned like 18, 19. And I think I went vegan maybe around 20. And I was vegan for a year and a half. And I missed the taste of McDonald's chicken nuggets so bad that I just stopped after a year and a half. So embarrassing. And then I got a freaking 50-piece McDonald's chicken nugget. I ate it all at once. Anyways, and then I went off and on. So maybe 6 months later, I became a vegan again. And then I fell off the wagon and I went back and forth because I've always loved the taste of animal products. And so that was back when I was 20. I'm 37 now, and I've been vegan for about 8 years. So when I was 29, I went full on, and I haven't looked back, and I haven't needed to. And sometimes it takes being away from it that long because certain foods are kind of addictive, even meats. So you go without them, and then you start craving them. But
yeah, just out of curiosity, do you still get craves,
yeah, like
or
so
has it been long enough that you've almost forgotten?
no, I can picture what some of it tastes like. And because it's been so long since eating it, I definitely think of the sad element more than I think of the taste. But honestly, yeah, I can picture certain like burgers and chickens and McDonald's chicken nuggets and various things, and I can picture the taste. Eggs, I kind of really miss eggs. I have a weird love hate for eggs. It's kind of a weird texture, but I miss it. Um yeah, yeah, and it's tough because it's something like if you grow up with it your whole life and you just think of it as this normal thing, it's yeah, so I think about it and I kind of miss it, yeah.
Yeah, eggs would particularly be probably one of the hardest things for me to give up.
Do you think you'll ever
But
do like a backyard chickens, get your own eggs?
and that's what I would do if I had the resources, or I would just buy them from someone who does.
Yeah.
Which I know people who do that. My grandparents do that, so
Oh, cool.
I get eggs from them quite a bit. So
Yeah,
yeah,
there are some downsides to it, but it's way better than factory
yeah.
farm stuff. I gotta hop off here because I drank too much coffee and I have to pee really bad. But also, it's probably a good time anyways. But yeah, this has been a great talk, both of our talks, and let's set something up again maybe in a couple weeks and do a follow up.
Yeah, for sure. I remembered some of the questions I didn't get to. So
Okay,
yeah, that'd be fun.
awesome. Let's do it then. All right, take care, man.
Sweet. Catch you later.